Hey guys, this was a super fun episode, and I really hope you enjoyed the conversation that we had with Shawn.
Yeah, we got to sit down with Shawn. It was great. We went all the way from him becoming a Yankees fan at a young age to his junior career, right through to his NHL career, which he's very passionate about. And then we talked about his coaching career and his plans for the future. So this was really great.
So thanks so much, Shawn, for taking your time to sit down with us. Thank you for a couple decades of junior A coaching in Truro, and we wish you the best of luck in Gatineau. Welcome to the Colchester Sports Podcast team. I was thinking about this intro for a couple days now. It's like, how do I do this? I think what I got to go with is this is the biggest Yankee fan in Canada. I'd go that far.
That would be fair. That would be very fair. And I want to make it clear to you, I don't dislike any other team. I just love the Yankees. You want the little story?
Yeah.
Well, remember, I grew up in Kingston, Ontario, and I'm forgetting now. It was on Channel 3, and I'm forgetting if it was Saturday at 1 or Sunday at 1 o'clock. The Yankees were always on, and my dad started me early. Okay, and I kind of picked up on that. But then in 1978, and I'm dating myself here, when Ron Guidry went 25-3, and he's my favorite player, favorite Yankee of all time. When he went 25-3, and that was the year that had the big comeback, and Bucky Dent hit the home run in Fenway Park against the Red Sox, I was hooked.
Right then.
Right then.
I had this question later on, but who's your all-time Yankee?
Yeah, it is Ron Guidry. So if you want, honestly, if you want the top three, would be Guidry, Don Mattingly, and Derek Jeter.
That's a pretty well respected top three.
You know,
Can't go wrong.
and the Blue Jays were pretty smart picking Don Mattingly up to help the squad this year.
So was your father a Yankees fan? Did that certainly help?
Big time, big time. And I have one brother, and he's in Bramalea. He's 8 years younger than me. And Shannon, I think, just did it out of spite. He wouldn't come with the crew. He went with the Blue Jays. So
Yeah, I had to have a battle in the house though.
no, you know what? No, because remember there was a big age difference, and I left home 17, 18 years old. So my brother and I are really just in the last 20 years catching up,
For sure.
right?
So let's go back to those childhood years. You grew up in Kingston, correct?
Yep.
What was hockey like back then in Kingston?
Well, back then there was Kingston Township, and there was Kingston, and then there was the city of Kingston. And I grew up in the township. You know what? Always had good teams. But when it was time to branch out to all Ontario playoffs, because of our population, we were AA, and the city of Kingston was AAA. So if you want me to name drop a little bit for you, our main competition, until it was time to split off into all Ontarios, was Kirk Muller. Kirk's a year younger than me. Great guy, was obviously a great hockey player, not just when we saw him in the NHL, but even thinking back to those days, I can't speak for anyone else, but had the Ken Linsmans, Dougie Gilmore was just a few years older. It's a rich history there, and I've lost touch with it now of all the kids that are coming out of Kingston that are, not just professional players, but NHL hockey players as well.
So you picked up hockey. What's that kind of like, I guess? Big baseball house. How early was hockey introduced, and did you play baseball, lacrosse? What was the kind of youth sports?
I played, that was back in the day of you played outside and you didn't have a phone. But I did them all. I loved all the sports. I did baseball and soccer in the summer, but I particularly loved baseball. I was a catcher, and so was Kirk Muller. So remember, we had some good battles in those days, and he was an excellent ball player, I might add, as well. But I like the strategy of baseball. That's what kind of hooked me. Besides, the Yankees being my team. I know it's slow to watch sometimes, but I like the strategy. I like to, I never will be a manager, but and I don't know it all, but I like that part of the game.
So just better at hockey skill, like that kind of took off for you? Or?
Well, You know what? Always played defense. Started at 8 years old playing defense. And I had the luxury of I can think back to when I was 12 or 13. I was the same height that I am today back then, right? Um, you know, um, we had good solid teams there at the Double A level out of Kingston Township. We were all Ontario champions in, kind of funny actually, all Ontario champions in minor Pee Wee. The next year we were all Ontario finalists, and the team that beat us was from Southwest London. I'll never forget it. And they had a player that was better than everybody. And I thought I was pretty good. I thought we had a few good players in our team, and an old NHLer that it turned out to be was Dan Quinn. And if you ever Google Dan Quinn, he was one heck of a player. So my Kingston Township team, we went downhill every year. We went from all Ontario champions to finalists to lost in the semis. Every year we faded.
Peaked too early.
Had the one great year, and that was something I'll never forget. And my coach was Dr. Wayne Kirk. Never forget it.
Coaching wise, I know, like, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but someone asked me once, because I got involved with the CC Cougar team. He said, who was your favorite coach and why? But I guess I'm just kind of getting at, like, for yourself, is there any, I mean, of course, like, big mentors. What is it about those coaches that kind of stuck with you?
Well, you know what? Not so much at the minor level, I have to say to you, and especially as I get older. But I remember a few of them clearly. Obviously, it's easy to remember your coach when you have success. So Dr. Wayne Kirk was easy, but I can think of a few others, and I wasn't thinking too deep at that point. I was just glad to play and hope the coach was nice. That's what I can really tell you, right?
So you had success at the youth level, then you moved. So nowadays there's a priority draft. When you went to the O, was there anything like that, or did just somebody call you up and say, "Hey"?
Well, you know what? As a kid growing up, they were the Kingston Canadians back then, and that was OHL. And I watched players. I told you, if you're young, you're not going to know them. But I watched players like Bernie Nichols. Kingston had some really good teams. Yeah, they had some really good teams. And my dad and I, for a lot of years, had season tickets. So, as I got older and I got, closer to midget and junior B and that type of level, that's what I aspired to want to be. I wanted to be in that league. And the team that showed the most interest in me prior to that draft, this is a true story. You guys got me thinking now.
This is good.
Dick Todd was my coach and one of my mentors. We can discuss him at any time if you'd like. He had called me up and told me that we've got you pegged in the third round. I'll never forget it. He said, if we take a forward in the first round, you will be picked by us in the third round if you're still there, and you will be a D. If we take a D in the first round and you're still there in the third round, you will be a forward. Well, they took a great guy by the name of Paul Bellamy as the first round pick. He was a right winger, and didn't they keep their word and take me in the third round? And I'm a pretty lucky guy.
So, what would happen if they had it went the other way and you had to play forward?
I would have done what I was told. I wish all players would do what the coach told them. But I just wanted to be in the league. And back then, Peterborough was known as the factory. Obviously they won the OHL championship this year. But back then, that was running through Roger Nilsson as a coach. Mike Keenan had been there. All kinds of NHL players. My piece of glory back then was I got to play with Steve Yzerman. I'm still a very proud alumni today, and that was drilled into you from the day you were there. And that's something that some of us older guys that I'm friends with now on Facebook or what have you, even guys that are older than me that I know their names because they played before me. It's the same thing. It's a pretty proud organization.
I'm happy you brought that one name up because growing up, I got to see the Red Wings heydays, and my favorite hockey player growing up, and I wear the number still today, is Steve Yzerman. What was that like?
Well, you know what? He's the same age as me, and he played. He made it. He was a 16-year-old when he started in the OHL with Peterborough. So I joined in when I was 17 with him. That was his last year. Obviously, at 18, he went to Detroit. I can just say this to you. We had good teams. We weren't champions, but we had good teams, and. My draft year, we got drafted together. He was 18. We had a veteran team, and he was the leader of the team. And he didn't have the C on, but I'm thinking back now, and it was how he carried himself and how he played, and he was just respected for the type of guy he was, and obviously how he played the game, and that was at an early age. So pretty fortunate to spend a season with a guy like that.
Would he be the best player that you?
He would be the best.
Yeah.
Yep. And I told you, I played with many that even that year. I forget what Steve was, 3rd or 4th overall. Bob Airy was an excellent hockey player. He won a couple of Stanley Cups with Mario Lemieux, and Bob was his left winger. Bob went 15th overall to the Penguins. There was some awful good hockey players, and Bob being one as well. And weren't they dynamite, those two guys on the same line? I can tell you that.
Hey guys, this episode of the podcast is brought to you by Scene Media. Scene Media has been a fun passion project of mine, covering events from weddings to sporting tournaments to conferences and everything in between, including the opportunity to travel down to New York to cover the Range of Strength Fitness Conference. Video editing has always been a passion of mine, and I've been pretty fortunate to work with some pretty special people over the past couple of years. If you want to feel seen today, contact Scene Media for your quote on your upcoming project. And now let's jump back into the Shawn Evans interview.
That's scary.
So speaking of favorite player, you were drafted to what now is my favorite hockey team, based on my research, the Devils, right?
Yep.
They came into the expansion the year before, I believe, that you were drafted.
Or two, yeah.
Okay.
You're close. Well, quick story on the draft. True story as well. Back then there was 21 teams, and I was ranked at the end. I was ranked number 18, and Bruce Cassidy was ranked number 24. And I'll never forget it. He went 18th, and I went 24th. I'll never forget that. And you know what? I only got to spend a couple, maybe 2 for sure, maybe 3 training camps with them, and then I was traded. So I never really got beyond there to give you a better comment than that. Yes, they were a new franchise, and I was just an 18-year-old kid, just glad to be there. Everything to me was awesome, so I don't have a negative thing to say. I grew up with the Ken Danicos of the world, and nobody looked like Ken Danico. He was a year older than me. He was 19, and he was a monster, and a leader at 19 years old. I think I want to tell you that when he was 19, he was in the NHL. Maybe it was 20, but they had a good group of veteran players that they were trying to make their mark as a team and as an organization. And I told you I was traded my first year of pro to St. Louis, so I exited out of there. But I will say this about them. They had guys like Burt Marshall and Marshall Johnston were some of their scouts. And when I played in Peterborough, they were there an awful lot. They watched, they were there to scout, but they came down after the games. That organization, as far as I remember, was nothing but class.
That must be a roller coaster of emotions from getting drafted, being excited to be in the league, and then 2 or 3 weeks later, I think you said you're moving to St. Louis.
Well, you know what? That's hockey, man. That's just part of the deal. I'm moving here next week. That's hockey. Yeah, I learned a long time ago. I was here. I've done the same thing for 20 years, but I learned a long time ago as a hockey player that you go where you're wanted. As long as somebody wants you, you still get to be involved. So, if I had to be traded, and I will say, I do remember the trade. My original trade to St. Louis was for Mark Johnson, who was a very good hockey player. They won the trade. New Jersey won the trade, not St. Louis. But remember, he was 1980 part of Miracle on Ice.
So that was going to be I was going to ask, yeah.
I never forgot that, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, to say you've been traded for, part of American history.
Yeah, I followed him pretty close after that.
So on the St. Louis roster, you also played with there was some talent there.
Yes, there was.
Dougie Gilmore.
Yep. And he, he was just making his way. And so Dougie at that time, was more of a defensive player, waiting his turn, right? Jacques Demers was the coach the short time I was there. Really good people person. They had players like Rob Ramage on defense. They had, everybody sees him still on Hockey Night in Canada. Greg Millen was one of their goaltenders. Former Peterborough Pete, I might add. Trying to remember. And, they had the Hall of Famer, Bernie Federko. My God, he could pass the puck. He could pass the puck.
Of every list.
Yeah, he could pass the puck as good as anybody. He wasn't fast, but when he had the puck, the game slowed down, and there was lots of talent there. Yes.
So I guess what was it like because you had, I think, 7 games for St. Louis. What was that like getting the call? You're dressing tonight.
Well, you're stumping me on where my first game was. I can't remember if it was Hartford or Pittsburgh, but I got to play with Rob Ramage, and he was an elite defender, elite defenseman at that point. He was an all-star, so I thought that was pretty cool. And I just remember that was Lemieux's rookie year. So I just remember him coming down one-on-one and me being, I can't swear, but I was pretty nervous. I can just say that. But a pretty surreal experience is what I can tell you.
Because so Luke Henman from Eastern Passage he went to Seattle. He was the first kind of signing, and a couple of at the Shearwater gym where I work, they know him, or they know his father, I guess, so they kind of know the family. And so we watched his career, his career a little bit, and he got to play an exhibition game against, I think it was Draisaitl and McDavid. So I just couldn't imagine someone you try to imagine that you're skating. It's exhibition still, but whatever. You're skating around in warm up, and you look on the other side of the ice. You have McDavid and Draisaitl on the other side. It's got to be I've made it. Even though I don't know if he's played many NHL games, I mean, it's still quite. You'd be pretty happy with your NHL dream.
Yep.
Who was the player of that for you?
Well, I can give you stories forever, but I might add, and I stand to be corrected, but I believe that the Bearcats drafted Luke Henman at one time. He never played here, obviously. He went right to the queue, but I want to say he was a draft pick. Stand corrected, but I think I'm right. My hello moment before I ever even got... I had my NHL games with St. Louis, but my real hello moment in my mind was when I was traded to the Oilers, to Edmonton. That's how I ended up out here, long story short, playing for their farm team with the Oilers in Halifax. We had an exhibition game. We played St. Louis. We played them in Indianapolis. And I got out there in the exhibition game on a 5-on-3 power play. So on one side was Gretzky tapping his stick, I want the puck. And on the other side was Jari Kurri tapping his stick, I want the puck. So what would you guys have done? I had all kinds of time. I couldn't screw it up.
I would have packed up and went home.
Put it to Gretzky. He went across to Kurri, and he one-timed it in like you saw for a million, you saw a million times. So that was, yes, there would have been some wake-up calls, but that's one really stands out for me.
It's. I didn't know that. I did some research and tried to pick some names out, but I didn't know that you played with Gretzky.
Well, I never got a game with the big club, but that was in their heyday when they were winning all their cups. And what a great group of guys those guys were. I can keep giving you names if you want, but they were the Mark Messiers and the Paul Coffeys. I just remember them. They'd call you kid. They made you feel welcome. That's all I can tell you. They were a great group of guys, and You know, they won because they had a lot of talent. They had a great coach, but they also won because, you know, they were like this. You could see it from, you know, I'm viewing it from afar and I'm viewing it as a kid, right? But they knew how to make everybody feel special, those guys.
Fabian Joseph, does that name ring a bell?
Big time.
So yeah, so I don't know his connection with Shearwater again, but the military guy told me the story that he was drafted by the Oilers and he was a center, I believe.
Yep.
Gretzky, Messier, and McTavish. I don't know who the fourth line center was, but he said, well, the story is that he couldn't break that lineup as a center because they were so deep. And so I think you guys played together here in Halifax, wasn't it? Yeah. But the story is that it was different back then because players were kind of held closely to the teams. You know, you guys can't have them kind of thing. But I guess what was it like? Who is Fabian Joseph? And
Well, Fabian Joseph to me is Elmer. So I nicknamed him Elmer 100 years ago, and I don't remember why. Okay, but I still call him Elmer to this day. He is a class dude. He was a big scorer with the Toronto Marlies in the OHL, and that never really transpired for Elmer in the pros. But he was a good, honest, glue guy type of hockey player. He was the guy you wanted in your dressing room. He could play multiple roles for you on the ice. You know, the teams I played with him was in obviously with the Oilers. I also played with him in Milwaukee in the IHL. You know, he's just one of those guys that you want to sit next to because he's fun and he's he's good people, and I don't think he ever got a game in the NHL, but I remember he got the 2 Olympics. I remember that he was the captain, and anything Fabian ever got, he earned.
That's a tough Oilers team to crack, though.
Well, and they were damn good, but they were doing all, I can look back now, they had the talent, but they had the innards that the inner part of the game or of the team that you don't see from the outside. They had it all going on.
So you come to Nova Scotia for the first time, I believe?
Yep.
Yep. And I've heard stories. You played the Halifax Forum?
Played at it was the Metro Center. It was the Metro Center.
Okay, I didn't know that. I thought it was the Forum. Maybe the Voyageurs played at the Forum?
They did. That would be correct.
So would the Metro Center have been a new rink at that time?
It was pretty new. I remember clearly we didn't draw well because they would put the curtain up. Okay, so you take away the upper bowl. But it's a great rink. It still is. It was a great rink then. So to go there every day and that was your home base. I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe the Mooseheads used the same dressing room we did. I believe it's the same. It might not look the same inside. Great facility, great place to play.
Wow, I gotta ask about the goal, the NHL goal. What was that like, scoring at that level?
Well, I told you the stories get better as you get older. If I had a favorite coach, I'm not shy to say it was Jimmy Roberts, and he coached me in the American Hockey League, the Islanders farm team. We can talk about him anytime if you'd like. But I'm pretty sure he pushed hard for me to get my 2 games, my opportunity. So that was pretty cool. And I'm thinking back, and I could talk for days on that. Al Arbour was the coach. They were just out of their heyday. So they were on we'll call it the regroup. I can see the goal clearly. There was a number of us guys in the American League that got our first opportunities that year with the Islanders, and a number of us for me, it was my only goal. It's plaqued and sitting at home, and I don't know where a lot is, but I know where that plaque and that puck is, right? But their main star at that time as they were transitioning was Pat LaFontaine, and there's another guy. You wouldn't meet a nicer guy. So the point of that is a number of us got up there and got our first NHL goal, and I want to say he set up every one of them. So he set me up for my goal, and the key part of the story is it was against Quebec Nordiques. I believe Guy Lafleur was playing that game. He had made his comeback And my old teammate and still my friend today from Peterborough, Ron Tugnut, was the goalie. So,
that was my question.
Yeah, small world, and I keep telling you everybody's a great guy. Well, not everybody's a great guy, but everybody I'm bringing up's a great guy, and Ron Tugnut fits into that mold. So I appreciated he let one in. I appreciated he let it in.
I scoured the internet for hours trying to find this clip so we could watch it. Take us through that goal though.
Well, you know what? I don't really remember all of it. I just remember it was a pass from him. It was a slap. Might have even been on the power play. That I don't remember. But it was a slap shot, and I believe it was along the ice. And I closed my eyes, and Ron let it in. And I got a plaque for it. And thank God, because at that time, you're hoping there's more opportunities. And, that was my one main opportunity. And yeah, not something. It was in the Nassau, County Coliseum. And if you'd like, I'd like to throw an Al Arbor little story in for you. I played my 2 games. I thought I played really, really good. Okay. And I ended up, I think I sat out a couple games after I played the couple of games. And I even got some hot dogs as a spare player at Madison Square Garden, something I won't forget. But when they sent me down, I was up there about a week and a half. Al Arbor called me in his office, and I tried to learn from this, actually. He told me the truth, and I will never forget it. He said, "You played really well." He said, "But you're the only defenseman here on a 2-way contract. You're going down." And you know what? Didn't hurt my feelings. No one likes to be sent down, but I'll never forget. He just told me how it was. He didn't do it in a frank manner. He did it in a caring manner. But something that will stick with me forever. I've never been a perfect coach, but I've always tried to remember that, how he treated me. Nicely but honest.
To be able to have Demers and Arbor as your 2 NHL coaches, it probably helped you along your path in coaching.
Well, it's I look back now and my time with St. Louis, I just remembered, we went to the conference final that year. So I played my 7 games, and I think there was about 15 games left in the season, and it was cut down time where they had to freeze their roster. They kept me. I never played again, but we went to the conference finals, and I believe it was Game 7, lost to Calgary. And I think that was 90. I want to say it was 93 because Montreal with Patrick Waugh beat Calgary in the final, if I'm correct. Maybe the other way around.
89.
89. There you go. But I remember that part, and I was a black ace for the playoffs. But you know what? I guess being a black ace is better than being no ace. So would I've liked to have played? Well, everybody would have liked to. But a lot of fun times looking back at those things.
So you had quite the run in the AHL. You did hold a record for a while. Did you know what that record was?
Oh yeah, I'm well aware. I tied it 65 assists. I'm not a bragger, to be honest, but I hold all the records still from the early 80s for the Peterborough Petes, something I'm very, 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 very proud of with that organization. But I tied the record with the Oilers. It was 65, and I can see the guy's name. I can see him, but his first name was Craig, but the last name is slipping me. I just remember that I needed 2 or 3 assists in the final game, and my head coach was, I want to say it was Larry Kish, and Ron Lowe was the assistant. I might be wrong, and Ron might have been the head coach, but I want to say it was Larry Kish. Anyways, that coach was suspended, and told you the Oilers had a great organization, and I forget I needed 2 or 3 in that game to tie the record. And I told you our head coach was suspended. I don't remember why, but Garnet Ace Bailey he was one of the, I forget what his role was with at that point with the Oilers, whether he was head scout, in charge of player personnel. He was, I can just tell you this, and remember, he was a casualty of 9/11. Okay, that broke a lot of hearts. He was they called him Ace. He was an ace. He was an ace guy. Anyways, I remember that. I don't know. I needed two assists in the third period, and it was a nothing game at the end of the season. And I think I come off the ice twice in the third period. He would not allow me to come off the ice. He kept pushing me back out. Stay out there. I ended up tying it, and something I'll never forget. And having the opportunity to be around Ace was, really look back now, pretty lucky kid. And then. I did set the record with 60. I did break it a couple seasons later in Springfield with the Islanders. No, with Hartford Whalers, actually. But in Springfield with the Indians, and got to 67. And thought that was awesome. And then I only held it for about 2 years because a really good hockey player, and he never really got to the NHL like me. But Chris Snell was his name, and I believe he was with Rochester. I think he got to 73 or 75, and that still stands today. So he's 1, and I'm 2 and 3 is what I know. Unless I've lost. Lost the numbers. I believe that's what it is.
You're correct on that. And the funny thing, looking back on it, nobody's really come close.
Well, the game is starting to change now again, and I think you're going to see people, have more. The game's changing a little more on the offensive side, and I can see viewing from afar that not everybody's Erik Karlsson, obviously, but the defensemen are getting more opportunity now offensively, and you're going to see those numbers start to kick up again. But yeah, Chris Snell, and I only had it for a couple of years. Was I happy for him? I was happy for him. I was mad for me. I won't deny it. But it was. I think it was 75, and he was Rochester. And that wasn't many years after I did it.
I think it was 4.
Yep. But I do remember following him because I did get wind of it, and kudos to him. I told you he was a smaller defenseman, but he was pretty. Obviously, he put 75 assists up. He had a good team, but he was a pretty crafty hockey player.
Can I throw one at you?
Yep.
Who is your current day NHL comparison? Like, so your play style back in your heyday, who nowadays kind of would be like, I kind of play like that?
I don't know if I could do that for you, but I will say my favorite defenseman, and I wish I could play like him, is Victor Hedman. I will say that. I don't have an answer for you on that. And that's certainly the way I played. I was a riverboat gambler. Okay. I was a type of player that when we needed a goal, I was out there. When we didn't need one, sometimes I wasn't out there. The defensive part was never my forte. But offensively, I was, pretty confident in my game.
So after the Islanders, you didn't really get too much of another sniff at the NHL. Rode through the AHL for a bit. When it started to wind down, did you know? Did you know it was time to give it up, or?
Well, we won the Calder Cup, and I believe that was scored the goal with the Islanders. The next year we won the Calder Cup, and I had signed during the playoffs that year to go to Switzerland. I can tell you this: I can't speak for every guy that I'm gonna look back now, and I'm grateful that I got the 9 games and I scored a goal. I'm grateful for that. I can say this, some people have done a lot better than me, but most people have not. In the big scheme of things, right? When it comes to that, but I will say for me, when you are a minor league player, and sometimes people don't have enough respect for that, meaning, there's a lot of really good hockey players out there that, and I'm not saying I'm in that category. I will say there's a lot of real good hockey players that never made it for whatever reason. for whatever reasons. But as a minor league player, when the day comes that you realize you're not making it to the NHL full time, it's almost like a relief, because then, at least for me, then you can get on and chart your course for how you'd like the rest of your career to go. So, if you look at my bio, I was not afraid to go anywhere. Whoever, I've said it to you earlier, you want to go somewhere where you're wanted. As long as somebody wants you, you get to keep playing. So, a year in Switzerland, a year in Milan, that was really cool looking back. And I wasn't afraid to, wherever it was, who wants me, and, is the salary okay? And, is my wife happy? And away we go.
Is hockey that much different over there?
Well, that's dating me, right? So it'd be a heck of a lot better than when I was there. But, I got to play in the top level in Switzerland, and we were a poor team, but that was an excellent experience. Looking back now, when I played with Milan, we had a very, very good team. We were the Italian champions. Back then they had the European Cup, and it was in Dusseldorf, Germany, and that was the best club teams, kind of like soccer. That was the best club teams, at that time in Europe. We finished fourth. And I get confused sometimes with Malmo, Sweden was one of them, and TPS Turku, Finland was another one. And I forget who beat us in overtime. I want to say maybe it was Malmo, but Mats Naslund was winding his career down with Malmo, and he was the captain of the Canadians for 100 years, and he was just coming, and he played for Turku. Come on, so you guys help me. He had cancer. Finn.
Koivu.
That's right. Saku Koivu was just coming up, and he played for them, is what I remember. I just remember, some really, really, really good hockey players in Europe saying, man, oh man, I'd like to come back and, get a chance in the American Hockey League. And I'm like, dude, you're good where you're at. I'm here. I like it here, but, then there's career European players from North America, we'll say, and they just want to get a chance over, back home. So, very interesting when I look back on it.
I know, so me and my father, been to junior A games, my whole life I can remember.
Yeah.
And I'm embarrassed to say I didn't know you played in the NHL when I was a kid. Because you're the iconic junior A coach. And so I messaged my dad, and just talking to him, I was like, yeah, sitting down with Shawn Evans, and he said, just going back to the minor league stuff. Yeah. There's nothing to bat an eye at. He said elite AHL player and elite coach. So that's the perception of people, I think, more knowledge than I have, and been around the community a lot longer. So it's pretty special, I think. I just want to make sure that gets said, that I think it's pretty amazing. So I'm just ready to kind of get into the early years of coaching now. We ready to move on?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
So Truro, the nice town of Truro. So you played in Halifax, overseas, and then what they want you here? You said, I'll come.
Well, I had a couple of stops in the pros as a coach. I had 1 year in particular with the Lowell Lock Monsters. That was the LA Kings farm team, and I got lucky. I lucked into be the assistant coach there with an up-and-coming Bruce Boudreau. So Bruce was the coach, and I still take a lot from what Bruce taught me all those years ago with me now. And what I'm remembering is I really obviously wanted the job back the next year, and you know what? Didn't get it, and that's life, and that's hockey. So then I was kind of looking like, what am I going to do now? So one of my buddies from back home in Kingston who came out here and went to Dalhousie and played for the Tigers, named Paul Curry. Paul was coaching Dartmouth Blizzard. Okay, so while I was looking for a hockey job, Paul said, well, "Why don't you come and help me out? Come out and be my assistant coach, and come out and do something." So I thought, yeah, sure, man. Anyways, at that time, and that was my first year in the Maritime League, Paul was the pioneer of the Yarmouth Mariners. So the season had just really got underway, and he said, well, why don't you take over the head coaching job, and I'll just be the GM. But in the meantime, he was working feverishly to move the team to Yarmouth, right? So, and that was 2002 maybe, and that was the year that, the GOAT, by the way, in the Maritime Hockey League is Jim Bottomley. So let's be clear on that. He's my GOAT. He won the Royal Bank Cup that year, and it's probably the best team in the Maritime Hockey League I've seen in all my time in that league. So they won the Royal Bank Cup that year, but Truro the Bearcats had let their coach go at the end of that season. And they asked me, would you like to come in and coach they were hosting Fred Page Cup. So, and, Jim Bottomley and the exports, they won the Fred Page, the Buggers, and they didn't take two because they were the hosts of the Royal Bank Cup as well. They didn't take two teams, but that was kind of my start, right? And I owe a lot to Paul, to be honest. And we're still friends today. And he's lives over in PEI, and actually he just chatted a couple days ago.
So you come to Truro. Did you have much expectation up front? I believe it was year 2. You had a player, maybe only played a couple games, Sidney Crosby.
No, that was before me. That was Steve Kroll. And that was Steve Kroll. He had drafted him, and that was even the year before. It might have been the Dartmouth year. Okay, it's a long time ago, but if it was that year. Remember, I didn't come in till the Fred Page, just that short period of time, and maybe it was that year, but he did not play against us. Okay, when I was with the Blizzard. Yeah, Steve had drafted him, and he obviously would have come up as an affiliated player, but that's pretty cool for the organization as well.
Yeah, no,
for sure. And so, I mean, it's quite known, above 500 coaching record, haven't missed the playoffs. Clearly something's working. So yeah, I guess and when I came and watched as a kid, I mean, Glenn Frazee was a big name that I grew up with Travis Moore, so we're around the same age, I think. So he played a bunch of years. Good buddies with Spencer Scott, Mitch Scott. Lansley was there, kind of met him after. He's a little bit younger than me, but a lot of good talent. But one thing that stayed the same is the coach. So I guess how has it been like? What's the journey been like, I guess, 20 years here?
Well, first of all, a lot of good players, number one, okay? A lot of good players. You want a Glenn Frazee story?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I look back and, championships are great, and that's success. There's a lot more to coaching. There's a lot more to hockey than just winning. I've learned as the years have gone by. But anyways, Glenn was the captain of the Bearcats' first championship team, and this is a true story. And I'm going to swear, so you better be ready for it. If you want it legit. We had a young team that year, and we certainly probably weren't favored to win. But we had an excellent goaltender and a guy by the name of Matt Iaroni. We got him for 1 year, and I'm getting off topic here, but he came from the Peterborough Petes.
There's always that connection to home.
He was the glue to the team, but Glenn was the other part of the glue. Okay, and I don't want Glenn to get a big head if he sees this, because he wasn't that good. But Glenn was an all-purpose player. He could do it all. He could play any position. He could fight. He was all-purpose. But I'll never forget. That's when the shootouts had begun, and we had lost that season. We had lost 12 or 13 in a row. there was maybe 5 or 6 shootouts in there. So in my mind, even to this day, you never really lost the game. You tied the game. You got a point. That's just my way of looking at it. We lost up in Amherst, and they were below us in the standings, and I forget if they were 5th place or last place. But we were riding up. We were coming back on the bus. This is true now. And Glenn was sitting at the, all the cool guys, the captains sit at the back of the bus. And Glenn thought he was cool. But anyhow, I had a lot of good captains, but, he was the captain of the first team that, got something done here. From the championship era. And the bus was pretty happy on the ride home. And I'm sitting up front there and I'm thinking, how am I going to deal with this? Anyways, he got up and he walked to the middle of the bus and, he told them, we just lost to a 5th place team. If you don't shut the fuck up, I'm going to beat the fuck out of you. I'll never forget it. And we didn't lose many after that. That's very true. So I don't know how you're going to spin that one, boys, but that's basically, I'm almost not paraphrasing. It's something I never forgot. And, we were pretty good after that.
It's funny because, I think back to big moments in the NHL when somebody steps up in a leadership role, and you look back when, Seabrook went over to Jonathan Toews in the penalty box and told him, say, like, listen, calm down, everything's okay, we're going to get through this. And Chicago went on and they won the cup. Well, now you look at Frazee, who has that moment, and you might not at the moment think it's a big moment, but looking back on it, that was a big moment for you guys.
Well, you know what? It ended up being, and remember, he was 20 years old, and Glenn had played here since he was 17, long before I arrived. So I had Glenn for, I think, 2 years. Still putting around today, playing in the summer league here in town, as you guys know, looking stunned with his beard. But I have a lot of respect for him, and that's something I'll never forget. And they don't make him like Glenn anymore.
So what has changed in the 20 years you've seen of junior A coaching, I guess? Have you seen the way you have to approach players? Are players coming up differently with, all this stuff all the time? And
that's tough. The phone's tough. It at least it is for me, and some of the old school has never left me and never will. Maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. That's for other people to decide. The players are tougher now. If they're tougher to reach, they're tougher to get to. At least for me, I won't speak for every coach, but it's tough to get them to gel together. It's tough to get them to, to focus in on being a team guy and doing the team thing. Because there's too many advisors now, and there's too many parents telling your player what they need to do in order to advance to the next level. Those type of things. I can't speak for everybody, and the kids are a lot sharper now. Back in the Glenn Frazee days, at least with me, I didn't have to tell them why. I just tell them, go do this, and just go do it, and they'd go do it. Now, not quite the same. Even trying to keep things in your dressing room sometimes now because of the social media and the phone, it's tough, right? You're trying to hide an injury. It's tough to hide things, in the proper manner. And I don't mean that negatively about players these days, but it's a different vibe. It's a different era, no question.
What about the game itself in 20 years? Anything you've noticed?
Well, you know what? We all watch the NHL, how fast and skilled they are, how good they are. It's amazing. I'm not, I've never coached at the NHL level, nor will I ever. But I still see, the team that keeps the puck out of the net, the team that sacrifices for each other, the team that'll do whatever it takes to win. I think the Florida Panthers this year is a very good, had some excellent hockey players as well, and a goalie that was real good. But at the end of the day, the team that's like this is the team that wins. Yarmouth Mariners showed that this season.
So you talked about the championship years for Truro. The new rink came, and then you guys get to host the Fred Page Cup. and double overtime winner.
Well, you know what? Awesome place to coach. Okay, it's a beautiful facility. Honestly, I want this to sound right. I got the Bearcats in my rear view mirror. That's hockey. But love coaching there. Great setup. Great rink. And I can see the double overtime goal. Summerside beat us in the final that year and deserved to beat us. They had a heck of a team, and so did we. And then we beat them in double overtime, and I can remember the goal. I can see it because he still tells me today, and that's the reason why I'm out of the MHL, is because I don't want to coach against Phil Fife. Phil's now in Amherst. I'm really happy he got the job, but Phil was a beauty. And Phil was a leader, and it's funny how sometimes big goals are scored, and sometimes it's those type of guys that get you the goal. It was a beautiful goal, something I won't forget, and certainly one of the highlights.
Any comparison between the old Legion Stadium and the new rec? Like, did you have any preference in terms of ice or atmosphere?
Well, you know what, a lot of good years in the stadium. Looking back. That was, old time hockey in a way, right? And I always tried to, we wanted a skilled team, but, I always wanted meat and potato guys. I still to this day. That's what I believe in. So we had, good, big, strong teams in that little rink. And when it was well attended, it was a great place it was a great atmosphere. I can still remember that, they had the cement wall in that rink before it turned into what it is. Hopefully it opens here someday soon again. But a lot of memories in there. A lot of cold nights, because I remember we'd have to practice later in the evenings after minor hockey. A lot of good memories there. But certainly loved the rec. And we're a lucky community to have that facility here from a hockey standpoint.
Yeah, and with the stadium, I don't know how we survived with one ice surface back in the.
I hear you. Well, we wouldn't have then, because the female hockey's growing so much, and and I've learned over the years that my daughters play female. I've learned over the years that whether you're AAA or whether you're house league, all levels are important, and everybody deserves to have some ice time, and everybody deserves to go out there and whether it's to have fun, whether it's to be competitive, everybody, it's all good.
So in the years, or in the days, the weeks, the years to come, and you look back at Truro, what will you remember the most?
Well, there's so many, it's easy to pick out the championships or the Fred Page Cup. But you know what? I had a lot of, a lot of great guys that came through here. Some of them are, 35 years old now, and I'm still in touch with them. And now I talk to them, they still call me coach, but, they're just, another dad, having a life, right? And that's kind of cool. I just kind of look back and I think about the Zach Renault Evanses. He had some off-ice issues back in his day. I like to see those type of guys now that, and Zach's were, well documented if you did your homework. One of my favorite guys, one of my favorite players, and, we're still buddies today. I look back at those type of guys. I had Lionel Solomon here. Lionel was, one of the toughest, meanest fighters in that era, and buddies with him now. So I kind of look at it that way more than all the banners that are sitting up at the rec. Very proud of that as well. Obviously, anyone would be, but I look at it in a different way than I used to. So, I look more at those individual guys and maybe some of the stories that go along with them. Right, I don't think I'm embarrassing Zach at all, but one of my favorite guys, and was proud to be his coach, proud to be his friend. Right, I think kids don't see that sometimes, at least from me. Always respected every player that ever played here. always saw the good in them. Maybe I didn't like them as a player, or maybe I didn't like coaching them sometimes, but always saw the good in them. The only thing for me is, if you weren't on board with the team, if you weren't team first, I struggled with that. That's just, I learned it, from some of the coaches I had, was I, you're not going to please everybody. It's hockey. Not every kid's going to love you, and I understand that, because I played. So I didn't love every coach I had, right? But if you had an understanding with them, or if you thought that the coach was, a decent human being and was doing his best, that's all. That's really my world.
You ever coach your daughters, either daughter?
I got to do both of them, so I shut that down a number of years ago. But when they started in the female, I did the female out of Fundy Highland here for about 5 years, and I got to coach both of them. I'm going to say my oldest Willa 2 or 3, and then Lucy 2 or 3. So one of them got 3 years, one of them got 2. I'd have to think about that. But I got them when they were young, and if you want a little story there, Lucy's just a mucker and a grinder. And and she plays at the lower level. And I love to go watch her play because she plays with heart and she plays for the team. And I'm all good with that. Willa has a little more ability. And I remember, I got her in Adam and Pee Wee for a couple of years. And I put her on defense because she was a good skater. Because my theory, and it hasn't changed, was, you're a good skater. You get to work on your backward skating if you're a defenseman or defense woman, however you want to put it. And you get to see the ice and you get to make decisions with the puck, right? My theory has always been if you're a forward, you need somebody to get it to you. As a D, when you're young and you're trying to learn the game, I think that's a great way to learn the game. Play defense, see the ice, make decisions. You get to carry it, you get to pass it, you get to do whatever you want with it. So that's always been my thing, but love the female game, and we all see where it's going, and Lucy's still playing, and Willa still gets an opportunity in the fall to keep playing too. So so I put my time in there and really enjoyed it, but I did learn that I liked the younger kids at the minor level. I like coaching I never coached. Maybe a year or two when Willa was novice. Yeah, I had boys with just a few girls. But once she crossed over in Adam to female, you follow your kid. Lot of respect for the I'll call them just young athletes. They're not set in their ways yet. They're easier to reach, and they were fun, and a lot of enjoyment there.
It's amazing. And Willa's off to
Plymouth State. Yeah, I got my shirt on for her tonight. Right. She's a lucky kid. Long story short, went to King's Edge Hill this year. Got to play on the hockey team, and at the time, I'm thinking this is cool, man. Get to play at a decent level, and I learned quickly though, and it's probably not for every kid, but I learned quickly. It was, hockey didn't even matter to me after she got going at King's. That was a great experience for her in my mind. Helped her with a lot of life skills. And there's a gentleman that works there. He's not the hockey coach there anymore. Chris Trickey was the one that came and scouted her. I called him up. I'm not an ass kisser. I never have been. I don't believe in it. I called him up. And I said, Chris, we don't know each other. We're buddies now, and we have a lot of common friends that we never knew we had. All I asked him was, come watch my kid play. I said, I'm just asking you to come watch her play, and whatever you decide, I'll respect. I won't dislike you, but I know the feeling because that's what I do. You're not going to please everybody. But anyways, Chris decided to take her, and it's mushroomed into the opportunity in Plymouth State, and she's a lucky kid. Well, and I will say the last thing there, and if you want me to be opinionated, is when especially when my girls were younger, and I love female hockey. I was all pro. You got to play female. there's certainly advantages to just playing female, but you know, if you aspire, I've kind of changed a little bit. If you aspire to be better and you think that, you know, playing with the boys is going to do that for you, then, you know, fill your boots, man. Whatever, it depends what you're in it for, right? You know, depends what you're in it for. But you know, that's an interesting dynamic too. You know?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. You know, if we all know who Raya Stewart is, she doesn't play with the girls. She plays with boys, and you know, pretty darn good goaltender that, you know, is on the rise. So there's all different kinds of ways to get to where you might want to go if you got some talent and, you know, you got a little bit of luck too.
Absolutely. So, I mean, obviously, congrats on the new offering in the queue. I guess any are you going to change any sort of way you approach that, or is that kind of you have your coaching mentality and that's
You know what, first of all, I'm very humbled to get the opportunity. It all came up very fast for me. I'll say to you off the ice, Gatineau, Ottawa, it's just a couple hours from my hometown. There's some advantages there for me on a personal level. The new coach and the new GM, as I said, it all came real quick in the last, you know, 2 or 3 weeks. You know, I feel wanted. You know, I feel respected. And, you know, as I get older, you know, I'm all about hockey is about respect and integrity. I don't feel there's enough of that, you know, especially at minor hockey level. We can talk about that too if you'd like, guys. But these guys, you know, I talked to both of them today on a conference call, and you know, I'm excited. You know, I told you, remember, if you know, you go where you're wanted, and you know, I feel wanted there. And Ben is a new head coach. Just won the Memorial Cup with the Ramparts with Patrick Waugh, and it's his first time. And the GM was looking for a veteran coach to, you know, I won't say help him along, but to assist him. And I'm looking forward to doing that. And you know, whatever he's going to need to be successful, that's my job. And I'm real cool with that.
pretty amazing, actually, I think.
Well, and the other thing for me too is, remember, I'm an old rookie going to that league, so I'm spending my days here before I go. I'm trying to study their league. I'm trying to learn the players, you know, at least by name, and you know, there's a lot for me to learn. Hockey's hockey, but you know, every level is different. I think people forget that sometimes. They think that, you know, because you've been successful or been somewhere a long time, every level's different. And I'm going to learn that, but at least I'm aware before I go. You know, I'm there to help him, but you know, in order to help him, I got to figure it out as well. So they were, as I said, feel very fortunate and looking forward to it.
Some rapid fire questions here for you, just to finish off. So just should be like one word answers or whatever you want. Favorite NHL team, or if there's a story of it, we'll take stories.
I'm in the closet with the Leafs.
Your favorite teammate of all time?
Wow. I had a lot of them because I played with a lot, but I'll throw out one guy, Chris Muscleman Pryor. Chris was my D partner in Springfield in the American League when we won the Calder Cup. Respect him more than he'll ever know.
Your favorite active NHL player? Hedman?
Him or Kucherov. Tampa Bay's not my favorite team, but because I'm a closet Leaf guy, but I love watching them play. And Kucherov is magic man with the puck. So, you know, those, you know, when you tune in there, you get the best of both worlds.
We heard a story.
Oh, okay, one more. I better qualify that, okay? Crosby's there with them. I better qualify that because, no, seriously, and I follow the Penguins because of him, and, he's different than those two guys in Tampa Bay, but, you know, if I'm classing all three, he's got to be in there with the other two. So let's make sure that's clear. Not because he played for the Bearcats.
We heard a story here before leading up to today that there's a player, I think it was an ex-player for the Junior A Bearcats,
Yeah.
that hasn't seen you eat. So I'm wondering.
Dylan Burton might have said that he's never in the time he was in Truro seen you eat.
So I'm wondering what your favorite food is.
Wow, pizza.
Pizza.
Yeah, I'm stuck in my ways and I'm a weirdo, but you can tell Dylan Burton, and he was a good dude. And he was a good hockey player here that I do eat.
And I already got your favorite all-time Yankee. So, yeah, I think that's great. Anything else that you prepared that you thought we were going to ask you?
No,
That we did?
no. I told you I was a guinea pig. This is my first time doing it. I really appreciate it. I hope lots of guys come in and do this for you. I think it's good for everybody.
I certainly appreciate
I do like when you kept talking, you kept saying, I could tell you this story, I can tell you that story. It almost, if you're ever home again or we catch up sometime when Gatineau's in Halifax, we want to hear some more stories. This is great.
Well, just it's just they're aging guys, right? So you have to be able to do your homework now on some of these people, because when I talk to even Bearcats in this last season, they don't know those names. That's just what I find out. They're not history buffs or that type of thing. A few guys are, but for the majority of them, that's not what I find anymore. Right? Doesn't mean that they're not good guys or really good hockey players. That's just not the way it is, I find now. So I appreciate you guys who are on the ball here, and that and you guys kind of know some of those old names, because what I didn't get in with you guys is I wanted to put what I learned the most is from Dick Todd with Peterborough, and he's a Hall of Famer in the OHL. And I learned from him, and I haven't done it as much the last few years. I did for a lot of years. He played 4 lines, and that included the year Steve Yzerman. He played 4 lines, and he played 6D. You had to have a good team, and you have to be able to do that. I learned a lot from Jimmy Roberts. He was like a second dad to me. Died back in 2015, and I honor him every year. I'm hoping somehow the new coach will allow me to do it in Gatineau. I learned a lot from him. He taught me, I like to think, how to mesh a team together. Okay. But I learned a lot from Dick that way, to use his whole bench. I learned a lot from Jimmy on how to mold his team as a group and get people to accept their roles. And Jimmy was you can put this on the record. Jimmy was a guy, I was a young 25-year-old young man at that time, looking for guidance on and off the ice. Treated me with respect, treated me like a second dad. Owe him forever. And if you look up Jimmy Roberts, had a pretty darn good career himself, Montreal Canadiens, and Jimmy was Lafleur and Robinson and Steve Shutt and all that crew. You need a few Jimmy Roberts on your team. That was Jimmy. But and the other one we've already mentioned. I learned a lot from Bruce Boudreau. And remember, Bruce didn't play a lick of defense either, just like me, but he coached defense, and learned a lot from Bruce. Smart guy. Hope he gets another NHL job. Cheering for him.
I think he should. That's great. That's awesome. Listen, again, thank you so much. We wish you the best of luck, and we'll catch up soon, I hope.
Yeah, so there you have it. What an episode that was. That was a real treat. I hope it brings bigger things for the podcast here, and it's only going to get better from here out again. So again, I want to thank Shawn for sitting down with us and taking the time, and I wish you the best of luck. So after watching the video, if you don't mind to give us a like, a share, get the news out there that we're around, and we'll see what happens after this. Take care, guys.
Bye.